welcome to ETW, Nina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So today we're going to be talking about a connected life, and this is I love that definition of something that we normally don't grow up with, how to build connection skills, listening skills, and this connected life. So I would love to dig into, what do you see the main parts or components of the connected life?
Yes. So, sometimes we think about our lives and we think about ourselves and we're like, oh, I'm just going to focus on myself. But the truth is that you have people around you, you have relationships that you need to nurture, and maybe you're single and you want a relationship, but you don't know how to get that. And then some of us have relationships and we have a really good connection with ourselves, but then we want more meaning in our lives and we want to have, our dreams come true in the world. And so when I think about a connected life, I think three main areas: the me area, yourself; the we, you and your inner tribe; and then the world. And I call the world the us, me, we, us. And so what are you putting out in the world? And so for me, someone who has a connected life, those three areas are thriving. Those areas are giving you energy. You have time. Things are not falling apart or a mess. You actually have time for spending time with yourself, spending time with others, and you have time to create meaningful contribution to the world. So that's what I call a connected life.
And just briefly, is it like three components that you're trying to balance like every single day at different times, or are you just focusing on one particular area? What do you think?
This is such a good question, because, so the three areas of life are the me, we, us, but the formula that I use for having a connected life is using connection, understanding how to connect is one ingredient, and understanding the questions to ask. What are the right questions to ask for you to put your focus in the right direction? That's the second ingredient. And the third ingredient is the habits and systemizing these ways of being so that you're not juggling or balancing, or so it's not just another, time management hack. It's your habits are part of your lifestyle. So designing habits, knowing what questions to ask, and knowing how to connect and deepen those connections are my formula for how to have a connected life in those three areas.
So what are really good questions that we can ask ourselves about how to connect with ourselves better?
Yeah, so one of the main questions that I would encourage people to do is to explore their pasts, because we've always had successes in our past as well, but sometimes we tend to forget and we're like, I don't know what to do. So asking yourself what has worked well in the past is a great question to kind of, instead of, coming up with new ideas, look at what you've done and double down on those things that have worked well for you, because you already know how to do them. You've done them and they've worked. So let's double down on those. Another good question to ask yourself is, what do I want more of? What gives me more energy? And so when you ask that question, you'll get some answers and try to figure out, how can I implement those in my life? And what I would ask after you have an answer is, what habits do I need to put in place? The how, the when, the what, so that I can actually have that more in my life. So those are the three things I would start with in how to connect more deeply with yourself.
I love that. And so can we talk about the we?
Yes. This is one of your favorite topics, I know, right?
I always I love the connecting with myself too.
Yeah.
I love my down days. And I think everyone, even if you're introverted or extroverted, I think everyone has moments where they need some of both, right? Everyone that's extroverted needs time when they can really go into their own shell a little bit and just recharge and regenerate. So, but let's talk about the we. I love that.
Yeah, when you think about creating more connections with your inner tribe, with the people that you love and that you want to nurture and deepen, you want to look at, when have you had conversations with people that were enlivening? What were you doing? What were you asking? What was the energy behind them? And you'll find, if you start remembering a conversation that was amazing, you're going to realize, oh my God, in those conversations, I was honest, I was real, I was vulnerable. In those conversations, I asked a lot of questions, I was interested, I was curious, and so looking at the people that you love in your life and trying to figure out, okay, next conversation I have with them, how can I bring more of that into the table? How can I bring my vulnerability? How can I bring good questions? How can I bring more listening? And you'll start noticing that that's going to change the way that you interact with people. As well, I also find that sometimes when people get into connecting with each other, they get into ruts of doing always the same thing. So if I text message with you, we text message back and forth. But you can call the person, you can send a video, you can send a gift in the mail, you can send a letter. Like, there's different ways that you can connect with people that you love that add interest, and it creates variety, and it creates newness, and it creates excitement. And so not just getting stuck in, well, I always call my mom. Well, how about if I send her a letter one day? Or, what if I send her a video message, because I don't have time to call right now, but I'm still going to do that. So there's lots of ways you can kind of warm up that connection and add to it, with not just the same old, So that's the two things I would start with. So that's, in summary, like figuring out the things that make for good conversations that you've had in the past. So you look at your conversations from the past. How was that? What did you bring to the table? Can you do that more in your current relationships? And then look at the relationships that you have. What do you normally do? What can you do that's different, that still adds to the connection?
It's powerful. Yeah, that really hit me around warming up the connection. So I'd like to maybe just touch on that again. And also, when you were talking about different ways of connecting, like with a video or presence or whatever it will be, my instant thought was that is also going to change the way I show up. If I'm doing something differently as the giver, it's different for the receiver and the giver as well, because I'm going to show up with different energy. If I'm doing something slightly unusual, like I will be more focused and more grounded, and I'll show up differently.
Yeah. And so let's talk about warming up the connection. Like, it does take a little bit of thought. Sometimes relationships, you think like, well, let's say, for example, I have my sister, and she loves to call and talk for hours and hours. And sometimes my schedule is quite busy. And so I'm like, okay, how can I maintain like the level of intimacy and connection without, spending 2-3 hours on the phone? Because I really don't like to do that too much, talking 2-3 hours on the phone, but also like I don't have that time. And so we've discovered that if we send video messages and voice messages, and then we react to each other's messages with like a like or a love, then she knows that, oh, I listened to that, and then I can reply. And so we found our own way to meet each other's needs. So she wants to know that I'm watching her videos, and so I react to each video every time I watch. She wants to know that, that I have stuff I want to tell her, so I make a video back, or I send a voice message. So you want to find the thing that works for your relationship. And sometimes it's different things for different people. Sometimes people love sending video, and sometimes people don't. They like sending pictures. And so as long as, you both keep adding to the connection, adding to the relationship by both, contributing, picture, video, whatever it is, then that relationship will deepen. And we call it'll warm up. You kind of feel that fuzzy feeling like, oh, this is going well. There's a flow here. And I feel happy to hear from that person. And I feel happy to send messages to that person.
So I'm kind of hearing it as warming up the relationship and then progressing to deepening the relationship. And then my thought was as well, what happens over time? If that relationship starts to drift a little bit because you've been busy or they've been busy, then you go through the procedure again to re-warm up.
That is awesome. Yeah. So for example, if sometimes I get really busy and then I'm sending my sister text messages, I make it a priority. Like, it's in my calendar, it's in my habits that this time I'm going to send a long video, like a 5-minute video. And so that person all of a sudden has been getting text messages and stuff, and all of a sudden they get a 5-minute video. That is going to, impact, right? That's going to be like, oh, that's going to remind them like they care. So if I don't have time, but I can allot a little bit of time in something that is more, that shows my commitment that I care. And it's also a video, so they can see my eyes, they can see my mannerisms, and that shows them also, because we learn so much from the micro expressions, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to, if you cannot be in person with that, you can't be in front of them, then you video, or you send a long letter, or you send something that shows the higher commitment. And that's, so if you're drifting apart, do something that is a big deposit into the love account of that relationship. Yeah.
You reminded me as well. I remember reading something not too long ago, and it stuck with me ever since. It was talking about, like, when we're watching a movie as a kid, like a Disney movie that blows us away. Like even for me now, like when I watch Moana with Kathy, my daughter, then I get so sucked in. And when kids are watching a movie and they're so sucked into the story, it's like you're so unbelievably present and deep in that story. And it kind of reminds me of how we can then apply that to our adult interactions with each other as well. Of when you're listening, be so deeply into that moment. Take some practice, of course. And it's so easy to get distracted in our modern lives, right?
Yeah, and that's where the habits come in. When you can habitualize these ways of being, like how you listen as a habit, then it actually takes no effort at all. And so then you have like less things to do, and you feel the freedom that habits give you. And so this is why when I talk about the connected life, the success formula is to understand how to connect, to understand the questions to ask, and to understand how to make habits of these ways of being.
Right. Super powerful. Can we talk about the final kind of big piece of your connected life, the us and connecting with the world?
Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is, how do they add more meaning into their lives? And so you may be like a busy mom, and you're like, I love being a mom and so on, but there's always that little pull that says there's something more for you. Like, don't lose yourself. There's something more for you. Or you're a business person, and you're like, I have my business is running well, but I know I have greater value to add, and I want to change the world. And so the question I would ask is, what do you want? How do you want to contribute in a bigger way? And so you could think about your community, even just how you interact in something simple like the grocery store, how you interact when you're out with your kids and in the playground and there's people around. Like, go start a conversation, connect. You are contributing to that person by adding, energy into that moment that maybe they were just standing around, just looking around, being lonely, and then you start up conversations. And then with your dreams, like figuring out what habits to create so that you are moving forward in your dreams and removing fears and continuing to go forward so that you can create a business, a platform, an online business, or whatever you want to create. So you want to look at, sometimes you want to start small when you think about the world, because it's so big. So just think about your house, your environment, your office. What do you want to change there that will give you more energy, that will make you feel more alive? Like, I look at your studio, it's beautiful. I know you want to be there recording videos because it's such a beautiful space. It's purple, there's lighting. I do the same with my office. I'm like, how can I change my office so that I want to be there, adding value to the world, right? And so you can start as small as your environment, but then you want to move out to the communities that you interact with. And then you want to move out into what could be something, a dream that I could accomplish that after I die, it's still adding value to people. So that's like a legacy. So you can go that big too. And you then create habits around how to move that forward daily.
I love it. So, you really made me open my eyes a little bit here, that I'm thinking back to when I was in my marriage, and I was so happy, but in your context of the connected life, I was really focused mostly on we, and a certain percentage on me, but actually mostly on we as a family unit, and that includes my daughter as well, and that family bubble. But if I'm completely honest, I wasn't focused much on the world, the us, the community, for example. So this really makes it clear to me that the balance of those three areas was very, very off in my life. And I see that difference now, that it's almost my main focus now is the us in the world,
Yeah.
and it's just me. So there's no us apart from the person I'm in the room with or connecting to at the time, which I always try and be as present as I can. So yeah, I think these three components are very, very useful for me to think, how can I kind of master each area or expand in each area or something like that.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of my background and a lot of my principles of how to connect comes from the dance world because I've been teaching for 20 years. And in
Well,
the dancing, you learn how to switch your attention when needed to the different areas. So all the areas are moving with the music. So the me, the we, the us, everything is happening. It seems like at the same time, but it's not. We just switch our attention from one to the next, and you do it, you know, seamlessly through learning how to focus on the different things. And when that happens, everything is kind of moving in this rhythm, and you're just like, wow, you know, like I look at my life over the last while, having this connected life idea, how I have a social life, and you know, we're through COVID, I've made more friends than ever. And how did that happen? Well, because I ask the right questions and I create habits around how to connect. And so I ask the questions like, who gives me more energy when I hang out with them? Oh, that person and that person? Well, now I'm going to deepen my energy, my connection with them, and I'm going to create certain things to deepen that connection. And so I asked the right questions, and then I did some connection habits that would create more in that relationship. And those friendships moved forward from just like I knew them to acquaintances to friendships to people I call every day, which, you know, I don't remember making friends like that since I was in like grade 5, right? Like in high school, elementary school, when you would talk on the phone every day. And now here I am in I'm 40, and I have friendships that I can call all the time to, and we have the great connection. And that is so needed because sometimes we expect our partners to give us everything, to be our friend and our lover and our support and our mom and our dad, you know, like to be everything to us. And they can't. It's like asking them to swallow the sun. And so you do need, you know, a connected relationship, and you also need your friends. But for me to be able to come out and be generous and be available to people, I have to have a really strong self-care practice because that's a lot of energy too. And so you need to know when and how to focus on yourself. Like I'm not meditating all day long, but I definitely have practices that boost my energy so that, you know, I don't get drained by doing all of that. And then as well, so great, I have a good practice with myself. I have great relationships, a social life, a circle that supports me. And then I think, well, how do I create that more in the world? And so for me, it's helping others create this connected life. And so we have this program that we're creating, and it's going to be launching soon. And this program is going to help people learn to dance with life, you know, learn how the dancers do it. And how do they connect in dancing? Well, you can do the same principles with these three areas, the me, we, us. So it's never like a balance. You know, you're not balancing the three areas. There's some areas that you'll put more energy sometimes, and then some other areas you'll put less. But then there's a rhythm. And so sometimes you'll focus more on your daughter, and sometimes you'll focus more on the platform you're creating, and sometimes you'll focus more on resting for yourself. But all of that has to be moving forward. Because if you do not focus on yourself, guess what? You crash, and now you cannot help your daughter, and you cannot create anything in the world. And so it is a very interesting thing. So I kind of think of it as a rhythm. There's a rhythm and a flow to these three areas. And I used to, you know, juggle them all, and I used to drop the balls. And so I have learned so much from all of my messes and all of the like failures. And when I apply the dance principles, and when I move in my life like I move when I dance, it all just started kind of working really well. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm onto something here, you know?
that's amazing. So do you mind sharing, if people want to find out a bit more about the Connected Life, like how can they reach you, how can they contact you, and more about your course?
Yes, definitely. So the Connected Life, we can put a link to the website. Theconnectedlife.ca is the website. And there you can get all the information about the areas like the me, we, us that we focus on, and the trifecta of success, as I call it, which is learning how to ask the right questions, learning how to create habits, and then learning how to connect from the principles of dance, learning how to connect in life like you would connect in a dance. And yeah, it's a 6-week program, and we're starting one very soon, and all of that information will be in there. And if you can't make it to the one we're starting, we will have a couple coming up in the near future.
Amazing. I think this is super, super powerful stuff, Nina, because I would have loved to have this even in my 20s or even in my teenage years. You know, I was a shy guy growing up and didn't have a clue how to get started with connection. And you just kind of learn by trial and error, but it takes many, 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 many years. And sometimes you're protected in a bubble, like I was talking about, and then you're thrown out into the real world again. We haven't got a clue where to start with it. So it's
Yeah.
super, super important to me and lots of people. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, everybody. And you know, it's not, the more I talk about it, I realize it's also, in a way, the more I get better at my connected life. And so teaching it and helping and sharing is one of the ways that you get better yourself. Sometimes people have this quote, "Those who don't do teach," as a negative quote, but for me, it's a positive quote. If you are trying to master something, go teach it, go teach people, and then you'll see how that becomes your life, because you are talking about it and because you're applying it and you're helping others apply things. And when you do that, you become a master, and they also are getting the benefit of learning as well. So,
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. You're welcome.